Welcome to Movie Give by Interrupt Hunger. I interview experts in exercise, nutrition, and food insecurity. People who've transformed their lives through healthy habits, and community health workers building healthier communities. Our goal? Bring these proven methods back to Bernie and make it the healthiest small town in Texas. Then share these blueprints with you to create healthy small towns all across this incredible country. Before we get to today's guest, here's a quick message about our Donate Your Weight program, which helps you celebrate your weight loss victories by asking you to donate $1 for every pound you lose to help fight hunger in your neighborhood.
If you've ever said, I know what I need to do to lose weight, I just need to do it, then this challenge is for you. We help you turn your knowing into doing. The Interrupt Hunger 12-Week Weight Loss Challenge is a plan to help you lose weight by creating healthy habits in a fun and easy way. While you create new habits, we use compassion and community to help you stay motivated long enough for your new habits to stick. Bring the 12-Week Weight Loss Challenge to the places you live, work, and pray. Once a week, come together to exercise as a team in your neighborhood or at a local park. Then, once a month, come together to give back to your community by volunteering at a local food bank, food pantry, or soup kitchen. And finally, once a month, donate your weight to celebrate your weight loss victories. Donate at least $1 for every pound you lose to help fight hunger. 100% of proceeds benefit a food pantry in your area. You already know exercise makes you feel better. You already know the difference between healthy and unhealthy eating. And you already know it feels really good to give back. The Interrupt Hunger 12-Week Weight Loss Challenge helps you to be intentional about how you move, eat, and give, and helps you turn your knowing into doing. Visit interrupthunger.org to join as an individual or start a team. Contact us with any questions. We're always happy to chat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Move, Eat, Give podcast by Interrupt Hunger. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got Evan Nadler. He's a doctor with extensive experience in childhood obesity. And today we're going to start talking about something called sick fat. We're trying to change the messaging around obesity and sick fat, also known as adiposopathy. There's just so much misperceptions out there and stigma, bias. And the reason why I've got Dr. Nadler on here, I told him I have him on today, both for his brain and his heart, because just like any kind of hot topic issue, folks are very dogmatic, and it doesn't matter where your experience lies. Folks tend to hold on to that so tightly and can't see the other side. And so what I like about Dr. Nadler is he cuts through all the BS and he just says, what's the science say? What's the facts? What's the data say? But the cool thing about it is he wraps his messaging in just a lot of heart. So, Dr. Nadler, thanks for joining us today. This is going to be a neat discussion. I've been looking forward to this.
Thanks, Jolly. And I was hoping you were going to say that you were having me on for my brain and my good looks, but we're on a podcast, so maybe the good looks aren't as important. But then you went with my heart, which is obviously super nice of you to say. And I hopefully what you're saying is felt by my patients, which I think it is, but hopefully the rest of the community can see it as well. Because, as you said, I want everybody to be as happy and healthy as they can be through whatever means they choose as a patient or as a person. I'm not here to be the old school paternalistic, doctors of old who used to just tell their patients, you need to do this. It's much more, or at least my style has always been, listen, here's how I can help you. Here's the information I can give you. I want you to do what you feel is right for you, because that's what's going to be the most successful in the long term, right? And that's what we're all trying to achieve. So thanks for having me. Happy to talk about this topic, something that has been a big part of my research to date and really has informed me in my thinking about the disease, because once you realize that how it works at sort of a cellular level, which is kind of boring for most people, but once you see that, it really takes a lot of the other negative messaging away, because it really is sort of, as you said, it's just, for me, it's about the science, and I don't really there's no real disputing the science. Although,
yeah, and I think once you get the science message out there, all that other crap just falls away. the stigma, the
Yeah.
bias, the misperceptions, and hopefully we can come in with a bunch of community after that and support
Yeah.
people like the way they should.
Yeah.
Before we get started, why don't you tell folks like why you're here and all the experience you've had? Because over the years, I don't know if there's a lot of people that have treated more pediatric patients with obesity than you have.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I certainly have the country's largest experience with bariatric surgery in children. And that's something I've been doing for 20 years and had the biggest program in the country by almost twofold by the time I quit 2 years ago to write my book and to try to take the messaging and the education straight to the patients as opposed to beating my head against the brick wall of academic medicine, which is how I lost all my hair. I had a full head of hair before I started doing this. Just kidding. But so I've treated children with obesity in partnership with a great pediatrician who studied weight management. So I call her a pediatric bariatrician, although that's not really a word. And she's retired now. But she and I basically had shared the idea or the concept that this is really a complex chronic disease that requires aggressive treatment. And so she was aggressive with medications. I was aggressive with surgery. And together we treated, I would say thousands of children and with great results for the most part, although obviously not everybody. And at the same time, I was doing science on the fat cells themselves. So I would actually, during the surgery of the children, I would actually take pieces of fat from inside their abdomen and from underneath their skin and look at what was actually going on at the cellular level. And we even got to compare some samples with children who were normal weight to see the differences and see how the body changes as excess weight is put on. So I feel like I have a unique perspective on the disease in general because I've seen, children who are 4 or 5 years old with obesity. I've seen children weighing 500 pounds, BMIs in the 80s and 90s, all as adolescents or younger. And, most people like to blame the patient, right? They blame people with weight issues on that person not being dedicated enough or eating unhealthy or not exercising enough or whatever shame and blame they want to drop on someone. But it's hard to do that with kids, right? Like, what 5-year-old was like not exercising enough to get obesity? And then it became like parental blame. And then so people like shift the blame. Oh, you must be a bad parent if you let your child get obesity by 9. And so like it was the number of times I'd see people and their parents in my office where I would bring them to tears by just saying, listen, this isn't your fault. This isn't about you. This is a disease. It's genetically inherited. So there's nothing really you could do about the hand you were dealt. You just got to play it as best you can. And, whether it was the kid who would start crying, usually it was the parent who would start crying because there'd be so much self-hate because their kid had a weight issue at such a young age. In the older kids, it could be sometimes the kids, but, it's just so sad. Like I used to tell the haters, and believe me, there've been tons of haters who I've come across in my career and still do. I used to tell them to spend one day in my clinic and it'll change your life forever because it's easy to blame and to say all this stuff and to tell and to think of these people as quote unquote, failures or no willpower, whatever you want to say. But if you speak to them face to face, you just realize that that's so far from the truth. And that's what I sort of wish everybody could see and everybody could learn, because I think that would help us all just take a step back and really treat people with empathy.
Yeah, this is this is so ingrained in our society. You've got a friend, Angela Fitch, who she made a great statement one time and said our bodies weren't built to lose weight. I've had conversations with multiple highly educated people, and I tell them, like, studies show, like, if you have somebody that's trying to lose 20% body weight or more and trying to do it on their own, without any kind of support, medical or surgery, there's a 95% failure rate. That means only 5% of the time, I think it's probably less than that, 5% of the time are they successful. Yep. And then there's this wall that's up there that they're not hearing what I'm saying at all. And that's just instantly, it's like, but.
Yeah.
But. Like, no, there's no yeah, but like this is
Yeah.
an environmental, community,
Yeah.
societal issue. So
Yeah. I don't
yeah,
want to pitch the Netflix documentary on The Biggest Loser, but it's worth, and I haven't seen it, but they published studies about what happened to the contestants on The Biggest Loser when they left the show. And the vast majority of them gained all their weight back, or if not more. And the extremes that they went to on that show weren't even as televised as, that's what the documentary is about. It's sort of like an expose of like what they actually were doing. It's just like, even those people gain their weight back. So um, to try to say this is all about lifestyle, and don't get me wrong, lifestyle is super important for all of us, and we should all eat better and we should all move more. Like, of course, I mean, I struggle doing it, although I'm better now that I don't work full time in an academic hospital. But it's a struggle for everybody. So to think that that's going to cure the world, just changing food policy or food quality, is naive. And again, it sort of sets people up for failure and sort of stigmatizes. The administration says that if I just eat better, I'll lose weight. And then you do what the administration says and you don't lose weight, and it's just another negative experience for you. So I really I've been on sort of a mission lately to try to combat that messaging, because I want people, 40 million adults who have obesity, to understand that what's being discussed in the food as medicine movement or the HHS secretaries movements, like, that's not going to help 140 million Americans. We have tons of data that shows that already. So yes, do that because it'll help you be healthier, but don't expect weight loss to come from it. You still need to get access to care and get compassionate care and comprehensive care. And even with medications, 80% of people who stop taking their medications gain some weight back. So again, I'm an advocate for medications. They're all like arrows in your quiver, or part of the armamentarium, whatever cliche or metaphor you want to use. It really, it puts a bee in my bonnet that we can't work together. Like, the people who are the medication people in general work with the surgical people, and that's better than it used to be. But there's just still this huge chunk of people who have no understanding or willingness to understand, or who just don't want to accept that obesity requires more than just lifestyle changes for the vast, vast majority of people. That's sort of the goal here, is to try to help change that narrative. Although in my 20 years of trying to change that narrative, I'm not sure how far I've.
yeah, we'll dive into the science here in just a second. But yeah, I've heard you say at least a couple times that you're treatment agnostic, and that goes to your toolbox. It's not
Yeah,
going to take just one thing. It's a whole person.
yeah, and I think the more so. Just like I think any clinician or anybody in this world, you learn as you go along when you do things more and more. And I have to admit, in the beginning of my surgical career with bariatric surgery in children, I thought this is going to be the cure-all. Like, I'm going to operate on these kids and they're going to be better forever. And it's going to be amazing, and no one's ever going to need anything else other than surgery. And that turned out not to be true. And I learned that, relatively early on in my career, that there are people who don't respond to surgery, and there are people who respond to surgery initially and then regain weight. And so it became clear to me early on how complex the disease was, and that all the different pieces of the puzzle are worth exploring and discussing and using. Like, what's the end goal? The end goal is to make people as healthy as possible. So why, for far too long, it really was sort of like surgery versus meds, or surgery versus lifestyle, or meds versus lifestyle. There was really almost very little collaboration. And I think that's actually what set our program apart in DC early on, is that my co-director, a woman by the name of Nazareth Mirza, she got it from the early days that she and I had to work together, because there would be some kids that she took care of that needed more help, and then there'd be kids that I took care of that needed her help either before or after surgery. So again, it's been an uphill battle trying to convince everybody to play in the same sandbox, but I'm hopefully getting a little bit more of that. Opportunities like this, part of that. Like, I just want, even if there are only a handful of listeners who are like, oh yeah, maybe that makes sense, that it should be a team effort with all the different potential players, then we've achieved something. So
All right.
that's the goal.
I like it. Love this attitude. Okay, with that, let's dive into the science. There is a doctor, Harold Bays, MD. He's actually president of the Obesity Medicine Association now. All the way back in 2005, coined this term "sick fat" in a paper,
Yep.
adiposopathy. So for far too long, we have made the assumption that our fat or adipose tissue is benign, but that's not the case at all.
No, it's not.
Yeah, so why don't you start walking us through this process? Why is it not good for folks to have overweight or obesity, and how does that lead to chronic disease?
Sure. And,
It's a big question.
I was about to say, do I have like a semester of classes I can give on this topic? That's what and then it'll take more than that. At least a semester. One of my soapbox issues is getting med schools to have basically a semester of obesity teaching in their education, because it's the number one disease in America right now, and med students don't learn about it as a disease entity in and of itself. They learn about it in like their endocrinology rotation or something else. But anyway, getting back to your question. So it's complicated, but the, fat cells or adipose tissue are designed to store excess energy as fat. And there are two different types of fat, brown fat and white fat. We're talking about white fat here. Brown fat actually can create some energy, and it's how some babies stay warm, and some other species use it to stay warm. But we're not talking about that. So first of all, obviously, the physical issues with carrying extra weight. Some people who have sleep apnea, it's really a fat infiltration of the back of their mouth that leads to that snoring that keeps them up at night. And then obviously joint pain and arthritis and things like that. So that, and in pediatrics, there's something called Blount's disease, where your legs actually bow from the weight you're carrying during your growth spurt. But outside of the physical attributes of carrying excess weight, what ends up happening as the fat cell exceeds its capacity, starts to leak byproducts, for lack of a better term, into the circulation or bloodstream. And so you start getting fat accumulation in other tissues like your liver or your muscle or your pancreas. And that lead to inflammation in those cells themselves. So people may have heard of metabolic dysfunction associated steatohepatitis, or MASH, MASH, or MASLD. But the fat cells also contain, this is what my lab studied, the fat cells also actually contain gene products or microRNAs. Again, you don't need to know the specifics of the science, but the genes, what we showed is that the genes in the fat actually change when you go from lean to having obesity, and those genes get released into the bloodstream as well and cause insulin resistance in the different organs like the muscles and the pancreas, et cetera, and even the brain, which might be how Alzheimer's disease is connected to weight issues. So it's complicated, but I would sum it up by saying that when your storage capacity is exceeded, or fat cells misbehave, for lack of a better word, and that can cause, depending on who you are, that can cause either liver problems or diabetes problems or heart problems or blood pressure problems. And I used to joke, or I still joke, that I'm just a simple surgeon, and so I think about things in a very simplistic way. So two patients of equal weight issues, equal size, one gets diabetes, the other gets liver disease. Why? There are only two explanations: either the fat's different or the end organs are different. And that was sort of what got me started in this research. And that, again, dials back to genetics and genetic predisposition, because, like I've seen lots of remarkable patients in my days, but one of my most remarkable patients was a 15-year-old boy, weighed about 500 pounds, BMI of 82, and truly seemed like he had no complications of his weight. And I just, it blew my mind. I was like, how is this person walking around like this? And then I'd see the next day, let's say another 15-year-old whose BMI was 40 and weighed 250 pounds. And that person already had type 2 diabetes. And so, again, I'd be like, this disease is confounded. It is not linear, because that would make, how does this boy get to be 500 pounds and truly like walking around like nothing's bothering him. Like, how does that even happen? And so anyway, I haven't figured that out, but I'm still trying. But it's really like, and again, I think that's what makes, I think that's why as a child, a pediatric obesity or childhood obesity treatment sort of pioneer, it changed my perspective on things, because I think the adult world, they see sort of this very similar patients most of the time, because that's who goes for care. They see, 30s, 40s, whatever, with, BMIs in the 40s and 50s and, with type 2 diabetes or whatever else going on. And so they sort of don't think about the outliers as much because they don't see them. So anyway, I think that's why, it's one of the reasons I'm writing my book, is because I've seen so many outliers that it's changed my understanding of the disease to really understand that it's not, I have lots of sort of taglines or cliches, and people are going to get sick of hearing them. But one of them is that obesity is a phenotype, meaning that's what it looks like on the outside. So it looks the same on the outside to everybody, but it comes from many different genotypes, meaning you can get obesity from radiation to your hypothalamus because you had a brain tumor, or from, a childhood trauma that leads to mental health issues that leads to the disease, or in utero exposure as you were a developing fetus. Your mom had gestational diabetes or had obesity herself. So it's like all these different things that can contribute to the development of the disease. And so the folks who look at it sort of simplistically, like it's one thing or a combination of two or three things, it's just far more complex.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. The deeper I dive into this, the more questions I have.
Oh yeah, I've been doing it for 20 years. And I still have like more questions than ever.
That makes me feel better. Thanks. So, yeah, 8 out of 10 of the leading causes of death in the country are a similar process, just manifested in different ways, right? We could spend a very long time on each of these, but at a surface level, when I tell folks I'm a 13-year leukemia survivor, and I remember sitting in the infusion chair back in 2012, I had watching poison drip into my veins, literally, and thinking like, why did I allow myself to do this? A common retort from people is, well, you didn't actually cause yourself to have cancer. Well, I certainly didn't help it.
Well, I'm not going to let you self-blame, because that's not my thing. Like, I do not let people blame themselves for anything.
Yeah.
And whether or not the poor dietary habits and the weight gain contributed to your cancer or not, I think the science is still somewhat not 100% directly cause and effect. And again, there are probably hundreds or thousands of people who ate the exact same stuff as you and weighed the exact same amount as you who didn't get cancer. So I'm going to continue to go back to, it's not your fault. You had a genetic predisposition that you didn't know about or couldn't predict or whatever. But I think the point you're trying to raise is that many cancers are indeed thought to be related to obesity and the chronic inflammatory state that obesity, puts people in, which I think those data are pretty strong, at least the association. But actually, there was a recent study, which you may have seen, that showed that exercise for colon cancer reduced recurrence rates. Like, holy crap. Like, what a great, wow. Like, totally wow. Like, when I saw that, I was like, that is like an amazing display of how just some, I wouldn't say minor lifestyle changes, but, lifestyle changes can really have a huge impact. So by no means am I a lifestyle medicine hater. Like, that's not me. Like, yeah, like lifestyle stuff helps a lot and you should do it if you can.
So what, again, just like a surface level, like walk me through how obesity, adiposopathy might lead to cancer.
So, I know I keep getting, you keep trying to steer me back, bring me back in. Cause
That's all right. That's my job.
I get on tangents, and cause I talk about this stuff all the time.
You're passionate about it. I love it.
I am passionate, and I also, I have a little bit of ADD, so sometimes I get started down a pathway that I need to just be.
You're good.
Rein it in. But anyway, and when I say a little bit of ADD, I mean a lot. So how could it work? Chronic inflammation. So we now know that obesity is an inflammatory disease. So people with obesity, if you just measure their serum markers for inflammation, just generalized inflammation, they often are elevated. So that means that their body's just in a chronic inflammatory state. And what that can do is lead to basically increased cell turnover. So what does that mean? Let's use the liver, for instance, because it's a fairly straightforward example. So you can start with what's called just MASLD, metabolic dysfunction associated steatotic liver disease. So that just means fat is getting into your liver, and that is stored both in the fat cells themselves. So the hepatocytes, you can see fat actually in them. I used to do biopsies of livers during some of my surgeries, and we would look at them under the microscope, and you would see fat cells or fat droplets in the cells themselves. But then there would also be inflammation starting once the fat cells would, I guess, get enough fat in. I mean, once the hepatic cells, once the liver cells would get enough fat in them, they would switch from being just steatotic, meaning having fat, to having steatohepatitis, which meant that basically white blood cells, the inflammatory cells, were now infiltrating the liver and starting to attack the cells themselves. So once the cells start to turn over, again, it's more complicated than most people need to know. But every time a cell sort of like divides or replicates or changes, there are chances for errors in the replication process. And once that happens, if there's an error, then you might get a precancerous cell, and then that starts to replicate more. And then you get a cancerous cell, and that starts to replicate more. So chronic inflammation in general can cause cancers in any number of organs. And it's probably actually how the exercise in colorectal cancer reduces recurrence rates, because it probably decreases the overall chronic inflammatory state of that person, which then sort of helps the cancer that's been treated stay calm or stay quiet. But it's not a exactly linear pathway. If we knew exactly how it worked and knew exactly the pathway, we could try to interrupt the pathway. It's not quite as clear as, A leads to B and B leads to C.
Yeah.
Nothing is in the body, frankly.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I wish we had time to do each one of these, but a couple that might make people's brains hurt, like the idea that obesity could lead to chronic inflammation, could lead to cancer. I think a lot of people don't make that connection. The other big one that folks really have no clue about is Alzheimer's disease and dementia. Yeah. And we've been hearing the term for a few years now of like type 3 diabetes. And I've gone way down this hole, which it's fascinating.
Totally fascinating.
So how might obesity lead to Alzheimer's or depression or dementia?
Yeah. So that's actually another thing we were studying in our lab in partnership with the University of Washington. We were looking at, again, these same sort of fat cells and the genetic material in fat cells and the little carrying bodies that the genetic material and fat cells, the carrying bodies in the microRNAs they released, can cross the blood-brain barrier, and we could find them in the cerebrospinal fluid or the CSF of the brain. And we basically were hypothesizing that the fat cells were causing insulin resistance in the brain, and that insulin resistance in the brain is manifest as Alzheimer's or dementia, which is why it's called type 3 diabetes, because it's insulin resistance, and that's type 2 diabetes. And, when we were studying this, 10 years ago, people thought we were nuts because they were like, what are you talking about? Like, why, how could that possibly be? But, now we're sort of validated or becoming more validated because it is a likely contributor. Now, is it the be all and end all? No. Again, I think there's a high degree of genetic predisposition, and there are probably other factors that are involved, and whether those turn out to be like the microplastics or the forever chemicals or whatever else. And I think that's an interesting field for people to start thinking about. But it's clear, again, that, just that exercise and improving your diet and getting enough sleep are good for you, which we already knew. But it turns out they also, protect your brain health, which is, I think, again, you sort of like, it makes some intuitive sense. But when you think about it, as you were describing, that it's, it's more than just you feel good and you sleep enough and your brain likes that. It's actually like a real physiological phenomenon where you are decreasing your overall body insulin resistance, and that is helping your brain stay healthy as you age. Yeah, and I think the GLP-1 medications are helping people understand all of this because of the quote unquote side effects, which are not actually side effects. But the fact that the GLP-1 medications are showing possible benefits in addiction or in Alzheimer's and other dementias, it really, again, speaks to the fact that this is insulin resistance, at least for Alzheimer's, maybe not for addiction, that is a key player. Obesity causes insulin resistance causes Alzheimer's. So that is sort of a more linear connection that is worth interrupting if you can.
So I think, the original idea of creating a sick fat campaign was we've been fighting the wrong enemy. We've been putting billions and billions of dollars and untold amounts of agony and stress fighting willpower and discipline, right? And I'm hoping that we get, voices like yours out to start breaking that. Just like with exercise, what I tell people is, like, we know that, like, you can't lose weight with exercise. Your body pushes back. Unless you exercise a lot. I mean, an amount. But to your point where you just make, there's countless reasons to exercise for your general health. There's so many incredible benefits. Like, our bodies were built to move. I mean, that's
Sure.
how we evolved, right? That's why
100%.
we're the top of the food chain. One of the reasons.
As far as we know, like, there could be alien life that comes in and they're actually the top of the food chain. We're just
Could have helped us out a little bit. Sure.
No, I guess now I'm going to be accused of being a conspiracy theorist or like a Scientologist or something. Anyway, you have to edit that out of the.
No, I won't leave that in. We'll leave that in. That's good. That's good stuff. So this is all these. I really used to think, and you helped educate me. You've taught me a lot. Like, I thought the general problem was inflammation. And you said some of the fact, like, don't put all your eggs in the inflammation basket. It seems, if we're focused on inflammation for a moment, these are all different diseases. Alzheimer's, from heart disease to a liver disease, joint pain. They're all different diseases, but it's all basically the same process, just manifesting in different organs and different places of the body. Besides inflammation, what did you mean by don't put all of your eggs in one basket? You touched on, like, epigenetics and genes and stuff, but hormonal and there's a lot of mechanisms.
Right. So inflammation certainly plays a huge role in many of the diseases, and the GLP-1 medications to potentially have a little bit of an anti-inflammatory effect. So they may help with the inflammation. But again, like with Alzheimer's, for instance, you don't see necessarily inflammation of the brain when people, like when they talk about the tau protein that accumulates with Alzheimer's disease. That's not necessarily from inflammation. In fact, I saw an interesting study the other day that I guess babies have a lot of tau protein in their brains and then they somehow clear it. And so now researchers are trying to figure out how babies clear it, because maybe that could be potentially translated to how adults could clear the tau proteins. But I think it's just, again, it's more complex. Like, anytime we try to boil a body process down to one sort of mechanism or pathophysiology, the body's just built with redundant systems to keep doing what it thinks is best for you. So, like, again, our studies looking at these microRNAs that are released into the bloodstream, they're not necessarily pro-inflammatory. They might be more directly related to insulin resistance without going through the inflammatory pathway. And so while, for instance, we have shown in cell cultures that the microRNAs from our fat cells from children or adolescents with obesity can change fat cells from just being normal fat cells to being ones that want to make fibrosis, which is which leads down to cirrhosis and then cancer and liver failure. It may be that the microRNAs from the fat cells, when they go to the liver, cause insulin resistance, and then insulin resistance in the liver manifests with inflammation, and then inflammation, takes the process in that direction. But I think it's, if we're just inflammation, then we could treat everybody with anti-inflammatories, Advil. Everybody could take Advil every day, and that would be all they need. It is probably why aspirin is in part a protective against both heart disease and colorectal cancer. But again, it's not the body's too smart, has too many redundant systems for it to be sort of messed with just one pathway like anti-inflammatories or stopping inflammation. So I think I think inflammation is hugely important. I always caution people just, keep an open mind to other potential pathways also being important. So I do like the term, although it's super hard to say, adiposopathy, because I think it's really that cell dysfunction that is the root cause of most of the problems, and whether that dysfunction leads to inflammation or other dysfunction in other organ systems, again, sort of just depends on the organ and depends on the person. So I think I think the new GLP-1 medications will help some of the science evolve, because we'll start to understand a little bit more when we use these receptor agonists or receptor blockers, depending on the med, but we still have a lot to learn.
So I'm going to ask you to touch on a very hot topic, but I don't think you mind too much. So let's talk about the health at any weight movement. My take is it's a pushback from all the bias and stereotypes and stigma and just fat shaming. But I don't think, to me, I don't think it's good. I don't think it's healthy. No, we shouldn't shame people. No, we shouldn't blame, obviously. But there's some reasons to still seek treatment or help educate me.
Yeah, no, I think, again, my sort of feeling about all of health is that people should do what they want to do. Like, no one should force you to get treatment. Similarly, I don't think anyone should force you to accept your size if you don't want to be that size. If you can be healthy at any size, which people can be, I did a documentary actually with an Australian news magazine, now probably 2 years ago. And they had a representative from the Fit as Any Size movement as part of the documentary, where she said, she's whatever size she is, but she, does ballroom dancing 3 times a week. She eats right or eats healthy. I shouldn't say right because that's pejorative. She eats healthy foods, at least that she thinks are healthy, and is very active and keeps active and doesn't care about her weight. And that's great. And I actually commend her for that. But the reality is she's actually treating her obesity. She's just treating it with lifestyle changes. And we do know that lifestyle changes can make you healthier and not have you lose any weight. So good for her. And she should definitely do that if that's what makes her feel good and makes her healthier. Now, if that doesn't work for you, like you can't get healthy, then in my opinion, you should at least consider getting more treatment. But most importantly, you shouldn't get shamed or blamed for seeking more treatment. If you're struggling with your weight and can't control your health or can't get your health in order by mechanisms you've tried already and want medication or want surgery, that's great. Those things work. And you shouldn't feel bad about that. And you certainly shouldn't have a group of people who don't know you telling you you should feel bad about that. And so that's my issue with the Fit as Any Size movement, is they're actually, they're sort of shaming and blaming people the way they were likely shamed and blamed, which led them to push for the Fit as Any Size movement. So I get it, and I support what they're doing, because I think there are people who can live perfectly healthy lives at a bigger size. And if that's what makes sense for them, then that's what they should do. But I just want them to be a little more open-minded for those who can't, because again, as you said, the numbers don't lie. There aren't that many people who can achieve optimal health at a BMI of 40 or above, or whatever number you want to choose.
15-year-old you mentioned earlier with that BMI up in the 80s, 500 pounds. But then the next day you saw another 15-year-old with a much lower BMI that had all sorts of problems. Yeah.
And even the kid with the BMI of 80, like when we looked hard enough, he did have some, like he had chronic inflammation, and he did have some other beginnings of sort of what I call subclinical disease. So he wasn't going to live to 50 without having some health issues, and probably he wouldn't have lived to 30 without having some health issues. So he ended up getting surgery. But at the time I saw him, it was truly like, so it was, I don't know, maybe a couple years into my practice, I was just like, what the heck? What is this? Like, where did this patient's something I've never seen before? Like, how does this exist? So again, like you can do it. Like, and maybe if he, at 12, when his BMI, let's say it was 40 or 50, started working out every day and watching everything that went into his body strictly, maybe he could have lived a long, healthy life with a BMI in the 40s or 50s, but no, it's hard to do. And so it's just not for everybody. So again, I'm treatment agnostic. I don't just want to give people the information so that they can make the choice that's right for them. And then I want practitioners and people not to judge each other for whatever decision they choose to make. It's what we're supposed to make this country great, is that we all have the right to do whatever really we want to do, other than like yell fire in a movie theater or shoot somebody in the street. There are a few exceptions, but for the most part, we have the freedom of choice, and that's sort of what I'm pushing for.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have a little bit more time, or do you need to go?
Yeah, I think I'm okay.
Okay. So one topic that we haven't talked on, and definitely a solid form of treatment, is seeking counseling from a therapist who's trained in obesity medicine. And you're close with some friends. You've got colleagues in this space. You've got exercise, you've got nutrition, you've got GLP-1s, you got surgery. Talk to me about another form of therapy and how that fits in, and when that might fit in.
The child psychologist who worked with me at DC Children's, when I started my program in 2010, and who's still there. She and I used to joke about how I was a wannabe child psychologist. I was that's really what I wanted to do, not surgery. So yeah, and obviously it was great, because she and I, when I first got to DC Children's, I said to her, super excited to have you on board. I know you're not going to believe me, but no lifestyle changes preoperatively impact postoperative outcomes in kids. But that's what I've seen in New York when I was there for 5 years. And I'm hoping that I'll be able to show that to you. And she was like, sure, but I'm going to study it all again myself before I believe you. So we did that. And once basically she realized I actually knew what I was talking about, we really bonded and became buddies and partners in crime. But the point is that mental health is such a hugely important part of all obesity, but specifically childhood obesity. There's something called the adverse childhood experiences, which runs the gamut of physical trauma, mental trauma, sexual abuse, all kinds of things that actually do have a link to developing obesity later on. And there are, I think it's important. Those are super important things to deal with, whether or not you're seeking medical treatment or surgical treatment. Like, I think the mental health treatment goes hand in hand with all of it. I was actually trading LinkedIn messages today with a guy who has a residential sort of school for children with obesity, who seems to have great results, and which is sort of contrary to what most people would think, because it's, he's not really doing anything that everybody else hasn't tried somewhere else. And I texted him this morning. I said, maybe it's just the mental health component. Maybe you're just getting these kids out of mental health or social situations that are predisposing to their weight gain, and you're just protecting them from that environment and teaching them a new set of skills and regulating their sleep and doing a bunch of sort of, lifestyle medicine things that we know can help. But you've selected a group that can particularly benefit, because this is the group that's looking for residential schooling outside of the home. So maybe I asked him whether he had data on that, like what the life experiences were before they entered his school. He hasn't gotten back to me, but I do think that, everything's a bell curve. So no matter what intervention, including mental health interventions, there will be people who respond to it and do great with it. So I advocate for anyone struggling with their weight, regardless of age, to seek out mental health support. Again, it's another stigmatized piece of our healthcare system where, like, oh my God, you're seeing a therapist, or you must have something that's wrong with you, or something, you must not be able to deal with it yourself, or you must be weak-willed, or whatever. But, we got to get over that, because everybody in this field or arena has something to contribute. And the mental health people especially, happens to be a shortage of them around the country, which is unfortunate, but especially in the pediatric side. But they can help a ton. And, I think that I have a huge respect for the mental health professionals. There's a book, I'm going to pitch one of my friend's books, called The New Food Fight. The lead author is a woman by the name of Marianne Tanofsky-Kraft, who's a friend and a colleague. And this book is about, how the eating disorder community and the obesity treatment community need to get over themselves and work together to help the patients. And it's a great book. So, again, I have a lot of respect for those folks, and it's really hard. And I hope people seek out that piece of the puzzle while they're looking for other pieces of help or other people to help.
So this is so obesity is insanely complex, but I'm starting to get the understanding that there, if you think of like different components, there's different causes that have come together. It's not just one thing that has caused obesity or chronic disease. If you open up your toolbox you mentioned earlier and use a GLP-1, that's gonna help reverse or treat some of the causes. But then over here you've got some mental health aspect of it, and so you bring that on board, and then so you're going to address some of the causes that way. You might need surgery, and that's going to help some of those things. We've got, this is kind of going off on a tangent, but I mean, studies show bariatric patients that have successfully maintained weight loss have developed much lower rates of cancer. So there's all these systems that are having the effect on the obesity, and that's why it's not going to take just one.
Yeah. So using the cancer analogy, because I use it often because I think it makes a good point. It's that the medical oncologists and the surgical oncologists have worked together to actually figure out what diseases, what cancers are best treated with which, with chemotherapy, before surgery, after surgery, instead of surgery, both before and after surgery. Like they understand that the two things are synergistic and not one or the other.
And they're on radiation.
Right. And radiation, I forgot to mention the radiation piece of the puzzle. But they've spent years, decades figuring out with clinical trials, okay, if you have colorectal cancer, stage 3, what's your best treatment algorithm as far as we understand it today? And, that's going to probably include surgery and chemotherapy and radiation. And nobody complains about it. Nobody says, oh, you should just have radiation or you should just have surgery or, everybody's just like, yeah, that's what you need. And that's where we need to get to with obesity is I'm not sure we'll ever be able to as clearly delineate how to treat each individual cause of obesity with an algorithm that's as clean as chemotherapy and surgery and radiation for cancer. But I think that's where a lot of the science is moving, is like one of our studies showed that if you didn't respond that well to surgery, your likelihood of responding to a GLP-1 agonist, albeit one of the older ones, after surgery was also decreased. So there's something about your biology that just makes you less likely to respond to the particular treatment. So do we need to come up, does that patient need one of the new biagonists or triagonists, and whether that patient should get surgery and the biagonist or triagonist immediately after surgery as opposed to waiting 6 months or a year? Those are the questions I think is where we're going. And again, where does exercise and mental health and all those other things fit in with that puzzle so that we can stop talking about, X versus Y. We can stop talking about, are the oral GLP-1s going to be better than the injectable GLP-1s? It's not really that important. What's important is what is going to help people sustain their health the longest. And maybe the pills will be that because people are more willing to take a pill every day than inject themselves once a week, or maybe not. And maybe that's a study that needs to be done. And maybe the pills become weight maintenance medications. Maybe you get surgery, and when you get to your nadir lowest weight, you start taking an oral GLP-1 and you take it the rest of your life, or you take it for a year, or you don't take it. And then if you regain some weight, you start taking it, or whatever. That's the science I think that needs to get done, because I think that's what really matters is how do we have the best 10, 15, 20-year outcomes for people with obesity who walk into our office today? What is really going to make the biggest impact for you as a person? Not, I'm a surgeon, so I'm going to recommend surgery. That's just not helpful, in my opinion.
How do you know what treatment to start with? GLP-1 or surgery or therapy? I mean,
it's
a
easy.
Loaded question, I know. Huh.
No, it's easy. The patient tells me, okay, I give them, again, I obviously have my experience and my biases in terms of what I think will work. And I'll tell the patient, listen, 80% of people who start an anti-obesity medication regain their weight after they stop it. 20% of people who get bariatric surgery regain weight between years 1 and 2 after they have surgery. 95% of people who stop lifestyle intervention regain their weight. The most intense lifestyle programs lose about 5 to 7% of total body weight. You have, 20% you need to lose. The only intervention that gets 20% as of the year 2025 is surgery. So I just give people the facts, the data, and then sort of talk to them about what they think they're ready for, what they think is right for them. And, and I tell them, sort of like we said earlier today, is like, just keep an open mind. Like, you may be in the bell curve of people who are super responders to medications, and you might take a medication, it might work like gangbusters, and you might need nothing else, and you might just be able to, make some lifestyle changes after you lose all the weight and be able to keep it off. And if that works for you, good for you, because your genetics are working in your favor, and that's great. But you also might be the other end of the bell curve where you're a non-responder. And you might be a non-responder to meds, and you might be a non-responder to surgery. And if you're a non-responder to both of those things, then we got to be really aggressive and start with, like, how do we maximize the combination therapy because you're not a responder. And so, and I tell people, like, just because you don't want surgery today doesn't mean I'm going to, like, not like you or not let you come back and see me or talk smack about you on the internet. Like, you just weren't ready. Good for you. I'm here. Come back and see me when you're ready. And the surgery works better when people are ready. So the last thing I want to do is operate on you if you're not ready. Like, I want you in your head to be like, yeah, time's now. I'm ready to commit to what surgery means. And the same thing, frankly, is true for the GLP-1s, because they're, people, similar to surgery, which everybody says surgery is an easy way out. But people are now saying that about the GLP-1 medications. Oh, it's an easy way out. Try taking one. See how easy it is. See how that nausea and that, the fact that you're like, tolerate more than a bite or two of stuff. See how easy that is. The dehydration, the headaches that some people get. See how easy that is. And then tell people it's an easy way out. Nothing's easy about weight control. Nothing. So, like, that's another myth that desperately needs busting.
There's a lot of myths. Well, I think for everybody listening, what you've just listened to for the last 4 or 5 minutes is one of the best examples of shared decision-making you can have when a provider has an open mind and does not tie themselves to one treatment modality. When the relationship between the provider and the patient is at its finest, is, hey, here's your options. This is what the data thinks. Where are you? And what do you think's going to be a good place for you to start? That's fantastic.
Yeah. And then there are these newer sort of procedures and devices and all this experimental stuff. So I often get asked, well, what do you think about the endoscopic sleeve gastrectomy? Or what do you think about, when the lap band came out? And again, I used to go and tell people, I said, listen, we should be supporting any treatment that works. And yeah, the balloon, let's say. So the balloon only works for 6 months. And then when it comes out, most people regain their weight. So that doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means people need to know that that's likely the scenario. So if they want to try it, again, go ahead, try it. It wouldn't be what I would necessarily recommend for somebody, because I don't think it's going to last you forever. But, prove me wrong. Try it. See if it works. If it works, and then you can maintain your weight loss without any other procedure, good for you. You've accomplished the long-term health goal, and I could care less if you didn't go with the surgery I was recommending or whatever else. Like, why should that bother me? Like, I've got plenty of patients who want my services, who need my services. I'm happy. I used to, again, and my kids always say I'm so boring because I say the same things over and over again. So I'm trying hard not to be boring. But I used to one of my soapbox things was like, I really want to put myself out of business. If I could figure out how to treat everyone's obesity and health without needing surgery, that would be awesome. I'll find something else to do with my time. I won't go, idle hands are the devil's work, but like, great. Like, that'd be great. Like, I don't care. Like, surgery is fun, but yeah, like, I'm not like in this to do anything other than help people get healthier. Like, so if I can find a better way or a different way that might be less invasive, less lifestyle changing or whatever, awesome. I'm all for it. Haven't gotten there yet, and I may never. But I'm certainly interested and willing and hopeful that the newer and better therapies come along so that we can do better for people. Because again, that's all, in theory, that's all any provider should want, is to do best by our patients. Like, it sounds sort of syrupy and cheesy and lame, but it's really how I feel. Like, I really just want people to be healthier and happier. And it just so happens I chose surgery as a profession and pediatric surgery as a subspecialty, and then pediatric bariatric surgery because I thought it was a field where no one was helping these kids. And if no one was helping these kids, someone had to. So I decided it should be me. But in the end, it just still comes back to just helping people and helping people get healthier, hopefully happier. And, again, sort of corny or whatever, it is really how I feel.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. Love that. Well, we're going to have you back and dive into pediatric obesity and as many topics as you're willing to share with us. This has been fantastic. Why don't we finish up by telling folks your next big endeavor? That's pretty exciting.
I got a bazillion thing. Again, I think I mentioned earlier about my ADD, and I am definitely in that ADD is my superpower. I'm one of those people who talks about that, I guess, disorder, whatever you want to call it, positively. Like, it's how I've been able to do what I do. So, and it's not great for my relationship with my wife. She can't stand it, but it's good for most other things, or at least academic things. But anyway, so today, actually, as of this recording, we're seeing our very first patient in our pediatric only, telemedicine only weight management program with a woman by the name of Stephanie Walsh, who is used to be the director of the childhood obesity programming at Children's Hospital of Atlanta. It's called ProCare Telehealth, and our website is procaretelehealth.com. And she sees our first patient today. And the goal of that is really just to expand access to kids who don't have access. And we're piloting that in Georgia and Florida for now. So if you live in one of those two states and you want to be seen, we can see you tomorrow, because she has openings on her schedule, because I know that. And then we hope to prove to ourselves and everybody else that it's worth rolling out to all 50 states, which we'll then do. And, I guess when I come back at some point, we could talk about the disparities in healthcare access and how pediatric weight management programs are woefully underrepresented across the country, which aren't enough. They're only in urban centers. Rural kids have basically no access to weight management, and how telehealth might help address some of those gaps. But that's the next immediate big thing. And that hopefully combined with the book I'm writing and my YouTube channel and my website and podcasts like this and people like you are all baby steps to try to help move the needle in the right direction.
Yeah.
But my sort of New Jersey upbringing just can't allow me to quit. I'm going to keep fighting this fight until I can't fight any longer.
I love that. You mentioned YouTube channel. What's your YouTube channel?
Obesity Explained. Oh, and that's the name of my website too. And I'm always looking for comments and feedback about, like right now it's sort of a vacuum. Like I make videos about things that I think are important. And then I try to judge what people think by the number of likes, the number of views, and those sorts of things. But, I do get some comments now and then, usually from trolls, but that's okay, because at least they're watching. But it's like, again, I have no idea sort of what people really want to hear or really want to know. If people go to my YouTube channel, leave a message saying, this was helpful, do more of this. Like my little, I have a 14-year-old, I guess my wife's goddaughter. So I don't know what that makes me. I don't want to say I'm the Godfather because that's a movie that has negative connotations. But anyway, she likes my blooper reel. I have one blooper reel. She's like, you should make more blooper reels. I'm like, blooper reels you just can't make blooper reels. Like, that's not how they happen. But, but at least it's feedback. She's like, that's what I like the best. She's like, the rest of the things you say are boring. It's okay. But she likes the blooper reels. So whatever, so I'll keep trying to be more entertaining. That's my goal. Because maybe that's how you get the message across. People like your style or the way you say stuff or whatever. Maybe they'll actually listen to what you're saying too.
Yeah, it's been good stuff. Dr. Nadler, this has been fantastic. We're just, as much as we got into, man, we're just
scratching the surface.
Yeah.
It's a super complex topic that we could spend hours and hours and hours talking about, but then we would definitely bore people. So
yeah. No.
We'll take a break for today and then come back and talk more about something else the next time.
All right.
Happy to do it. Happy to do it whenever.
Thank you so much. This has been fun. We'll definitely have you back soon.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. Please rate and review the podcast on the platform of your choice so we can reach more people and more people are recommended this podcast. And if you really liked it, the single best way you can help us grow is by telling your friends. Now, for all the legal stuff. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. For my day job, I'm an employee of AbbVie and appear on this podcast on my own accord and not in the professional capacity as an AbbVie employee. All viewpoints provided are my personal opinions and not intended to reflect those of my employer. If you have any questions or comments, please shoot me an email at jolly@interrupthunger.org. Let's go spread some joy, people.